the keypad that I use for my pendant. I'll leave a link in the description below. Just a standard 35 key pad. As you can see at the price now, it's 20 bucks. It is Wi-Fi or wireless enabled. It's not Bluetooth, so you have to plug that dongle into your. You'll have to have an open USB port so you can plug that dongle into it. The other thing you'll need is the software. Luna macros and HID macros. I'll provide the link for both of those also. But here's the download for Luna macros, and here's the download for HID macros. Those all download as a zip, so you'll need to download those to your computer and then unzip them and run the executables from the unzip location. For HID macros, I need to run it as administrator. If not, I get an error for some reason. So I right click, run as administrator, click the yes button, and HID macros opens up. So again, you use this application to map your keyboard numbers from the keyboard that you're going to use to the mapping software, which is the Luna. What I've done for this is I actually created a cheat sheet in Word, but you can create it in anything, on the keys that I wanted to use. So for me, I have up, down, right, left, of course. And then I use some other keys to do some other stuff. If you notice my up key is my 10 times back. My down is my 10 times forward, right 10 times right, left 10 times left. And then I map some other keys for regular back, forward, right, left. So I have what the actual key is on the keypad, what its number is coming out of HID macros, and then I just have a note on what I'm using that for. So let me tell you how you find this number in HID macros. Like I said, you open up HID macros, go to new, hit scan, and I am going to push the up arrow. And if you notice, the up arrow was 38, so that's where I get that from. Scan again, and hit the down arrow, 40. Scan again, hit the left arrow, it's 37. Scan again, hit the right arrow, 39. So I do that for all the buttons that I want to use. And I just note them. Matter of fact, I think I did that for every button, even the buttons I didn't want to use. So if you notice down here in my list, I have some that are just there. One thing to note was on this keypad is I couldn't use the search button for some reason. I tried to program it and it shows that it's 170, but every time I programmed it and I hit the search button, it still brought up search. So just note that was the only key I couldn't use. Everything else I was able to map and get the mapping to work properly. Okay, so now after you've mapped all your keys, you're basically done with HID macros. Alright, we're now done with HID macros. Let's launch Luna macros. Right click, run as administrator. Click yes. Luna macros is the program that gives us the mapping, the actual address of the keypad that we're going to use. And it's the program that we use to map the shortcuts. There's some custom code that we need. I'll provide all this to you. But the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what the address of our machine is. So LMC print devices is the code that you need to run. And you're going to run this twice. The first time you're going to run it, make sure your keypad is not plugged in. And if you notice here, I just ran it, hit the little run button here, and I have 9 devices. I'm going to plug my keyboard in now, and then I'm going to rerun it. And what we should see is I now have 10 devices. For me, this has always been, the device I'm looking for has always been the first keyboard. So it's the first added keyboard to the list. So you notice that it is this one here, and if you look up above, I don't have that address in any of these. None of these lines look exactly the same. And what we're looking for in this address is about halfway through, you'll see an ampersand and then a series of numbers. That's the address of your keyboard. You're going to want to copy that out and save it because you'll need it in the moment. So you see I've copied and pasted it here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start programming the pendant. I'm going to include this little short test for you, and I'll also include the long one. And you may get lucky in all my testing. All these mappings that we did earlier have been the same on every computer and every keyboard keypad that I've used. So up's always been 38, down's always been 40, and so on and so forth. So you may be able to use the actual full code that I give you, but please understand that that's something you're going to need to validate. Run through this, validate that those numbers do exactly what you want, and you may not want it to do what mine does. So just validate that. But here's the sample code, and let me explain it to you real quick. So this is the device set name. So this is, I called it CNC pendant. This number right here is the actual number that we copied from here. So you'll put that in, and that's what tells your computer that, hey, I want this pendant, this device, with this address to do this, and only this. So your keypad will be the only one doing this. Your regular keyboard, 10 key won't. And then it just runs through these sets of instructions. And here's where the actual programming of the keyboard starts. So mind you, I'm not a programmer. I know a little bit about how some things work, but not a programmer by any means. So basically you're telling it that when I press button 45, then I'm going to send the key up to whatever software I'm in or whatever I'm using. So that's how that works. This is the button you're pressing on the keyboard, and this is the actual mapping I want. So if we come back over here, if I go to my regular, let's find up. Okay, so in this instance, let's say I want button 45 to actually equal up the up key. So what I'm going to do here is, let's go see what that actual button 45 is on the keypad. So for me, 45 was actually insert. So this is up for me, this is a down, this is left, and this is a right. And then this is spindle up and spindle down. So in this code, when I press insert, I want it to actually think I'm pressing the up button. In CNCjs, up thinks that I am going backwards, if that makes sense. So that's what this is doing. In this code, when I press insert, I want it to actually think I'm pressing the up button. In CNCjs, up thinks that I am going backwards, if that makes sense. So that's what this is doing. The way to test this is with an application, or actually it's not even an application. It is a link called Keyboard Tester. Okay, so let's take this sample code I have here and let's copy and paste it. into Luna Edit, and we're going to test it using a program, a keyboard tester off of the internet. So again, things that we've done here is you're going to need to make sure that this matches whatever your keyboard ID number is that we got from here. Yours is different than mine. And then these keys, my insert's going to map to up, my delete's going to map to down, and so on and so forth. So let's see if we can make this work. I'm going to hit the play button, and okay, looks like it took it. So I'm going to hit the play button, and let's see if this worked. So I'm going to hit my insert button. If you notice, my insert button says my up button is being selected. Delete is going down. Home is right, left. And that's really all you do to get your basic up, down, right, left controls. Let me open up the large file and I'll just walk you through what that looks like. And then we'll talk about some of the custom stuff I did. So again, you have the device name, pendant, and then I've broke it down into sections. So if you look here at this code, it starts off with my 10 times move. So what I'm using my 10 times move for are my regular up, down, right, and left arrows. You know, in CNCjs, you can do a shift up to move it 10 times whatever your increment is. And I do that a lot when I'm clearing my CNC. Then I have my regular move buttons. And I have all those labeled up until here. I stop my regular move buttons. And then I have some custom buttons which I want to reset my machine or unlock my machine. So I've used the custom map keys to do that. You can find those at CNCjs. Again, I'll leave a link for that. But here you can see all of the, and not all these work. I don't know why they do or don't. Like none of these shuffles work. But unlock, reset, homing, all work for me. That's really all I wanted to do with my pendant anyways. Tried to really wanted some of these jogs or shuffles to work, but I couldn't get any of those to work. So if any of you have any input on that, I would appreciate it. Okay, now let's talk about how we do some of these custom or multi-keyboard inputs, like a Control-Alt and Windows button or Command at the same time. For this, Luna Macros does have some shortcut keys that we'll go over real quick. And if we take a look here at my shortcut map notepad, we can see that like the caret top is Control, percent is Alt, plus is Shift, pound is the Windows key, and the ampersand is Tab. So let's go into Luna Macros and see what those look like. We scroll down to the bottom, we can see how they're actually all keyed together right here. So this open parentheses is by default on everything, and then you have the single quote with the caret top, the percent, the pound, and the R. So if we look back to this, that's exactly what the keyboard shows us. The keyboard shortcuts for CNCjs show us Control, Alt, Command, and Home, and those map to these shortcuts here. So Control is caret, % is alt, pound is the Windows key, and then home. That kicks off that command. And to see how that works, let's just make sure we have that running, and come to the keyboard tester. And I'm going to press my homing button. And if you notice that all those keys light up at one time, that homes my machine. And then you would just repeat that for any of these other keys that you would want, like the reset or the unlock. It's just that same process. When we're talking about the way this actually has to look, there is actually some formatting that needs to be provided there. And if you notice, if you're just mapping something to a single key, you can just use that key. So in this instance, we're using R, so we're just using R here. But say you're using your up button or down button or right button, you do have to actually map what that looks like. So here I'm mapping whatever button 57 is. If I go to my cheat sheet, I'll look. 57 is the spindle, is my 9 button. So, and I want that to do a page up. So that will up and down, or that'll move my spindle up. So for that, you know, the open bracket is always there. The single quote is always there. And then in that page up, that is a bracket, an actual PG, and this, I'm sorry, this page down, PGDN for page down, and then close bracket, and then close single parentheses. So that tells me that when I press this 51 key, which is spindle down, that it will do a page down. If we scroll up a little bit more and take a look at how we do and that's the same, there's up, down, left, right. And the way you do a shift, so if you're pressing a shift, let's go shift up. So a shift up, like you want to do 10 times your move, it is really, this is the code that you're really messing with right here in the middle, which is a plus for shift, close bracket, the word up, or an open bracket, the word up, and then a close bracket. So that's the format that you have to follow for anything that is an actual button, like up, down, right, left, page down, page up. And that looks like about it. Everything else you can just type in the actual letter for. And you can see an instance where I want to just map a key to the left button. Like 52 is mapped to left, and in my instance 52 is the 4. So when I press what is the number 4 on the keypad, it actually hits the left, it actually thinks I'm hitting the left button and sends it to CNCjs. Okay, I know the video is getting long, but let's take a quick look at how this works so far on the CNC, or on the computer that runs CNCjs. Then I'll show you how I do my screen picks, and then we will talk about how you can set Luna macros to run on startup, so you don't have to worry about remembering to start the program each time you want to run your CNC. All right, now I'm on the computer that runs my CNC. I have CNCjs up, and let's just walk through a couple of the basic commands. Remember my insert button and my delete button we had programmed to go up, you know, backwards and forwards. So see, we're doing that. My home will go left, my end will go right, and then up is my spindle. So all those good there. If you remember, I also did my regular up and down keys to be 5x. So it'll be 5x whatever this is, so it's half inch. And same from our right and left, it'll go right and left. And there we go. Oh, that works out great. That's some of the basic functionality. You know, this is really handy whenever you don't want to be, when you're not, you know, when you're trying to set up your spindle and, you know, your router to start X, Y, and Z, 0, 0, 0, and, you know, home your machine, and you don't want to be tied to the actual computer on the keyboard, and you want to be at your machine. So that's when this pendant comes in handy. But some other issues we have, or at least I have from time to time, is this increment may be set more than what I want, or it may be for some reason set to metric instead of inches, millimeters instead of inches, and I want to change those back. The issue is there's no shortcut keys to do that. The only way you can do that is via picking on the screen. At least I haven't been able to find any that actually do that. So to rectify that, I actually use a program called TinyTask that actually records screen picks, and then you can actually run that screen pick as an executable, or save it as an executable, and run it from Luna macros. So you can assign it to a key on your pendant, on your keyboard, pick it, and it'll actually go through and run that. So let me show you how we do that. First thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download TinyTask, and I will include a link to it. And you got to watch out because there's some other downloads that add bloatware to you, so you don't want to get those. You want to go to the tinytask.com and download it. It is a single executable. I don't like this. Let's try this again. Yeah, looks like it gave us what we wanted. And it should have gone to my downloads. And let's execute it, and there it is. So this nifty little program is what allows us to record screenshots. So you hit the record button, you pick what you want it to do, and the record button goes to a stop button, and then you can play it back. So one thing that I don't like doing is when you actually go to record this and start picking on it, it hides in the background so you can't ever find it again. You have to move your mouse all over to find it. It does give you the option to set up shortcuts to actually start and stop it. So I'm just going to do that. I went to Preferences, Recording Hotkey, F8. So now all I have to do is press F8 to start the recording and F8 to stop the recording. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick millimeters and change it to inches. Now mind you, to do this you need to make sure you have this set up the way you always set it up. So for me on this machine, it's always maximized. This is the way I run it on this computer. So I always make sure to maximize it and have it ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to record the macro. I'm going to change millimeters to inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press F8. F8 should start the recording. Come pick this, pick inches, went to inches, and I'm going to hit F8 to stop the recording. So if you notice I didn't have to pick this at all. Let's just hit the play button to validate that that's exactly what I wanted it to do. I'm going to change this back to millimeters and hit this play. If you notice my mouse should come over, pick it, go to inches, and be done. A little slow. You know, we want that to be almost instantaneous, like it's an actual shortcut instead of a mouse moving over. One thing you can do is you can set the speed. I just set it to 100x. It looks like you can set your own custom ones up, but 100 seems to be fine for me. So at 100, let's run that test again and see what that looks like. I'm going to hit play. You notice it's almost instant. At least it's fast enough for me. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually save this recording as an executable. So to do that, you hit this download executable button. And it's going to want to save it to someplace on your computer. I actually have a location designated for my macros, and I just made it under CNCjs, made a folder there, and made one called macros. And give it a name. Now I want this name to be specific. I want it to be the actual name of the shortcut I have in my text. So to do that, I'm going to come down here in my Luna file, Luna macro file, and I want it to be called change to inches. You notice that's already programmed in here. So I am going to name it change to inches. I don't need the executable on there. And save it. So it compiled it and it saved an executable. And now what we should be able to do is if we go back to that folder, I should be able to run that and it's going to do my mouse click. You can see that. Let's do it one more time. I am going to run this and it's going to do that mouse click. Okay, so now let's say I have this, and instead of running it, I am just going to hit the period button, and that should. Okay, so now let's test it. Now all I should have to do is on my keyboard, for me, I press the period button, and it should change that to press the period button. It's going to run Luna macros and run that change to inches executable that we just programmed. And there you go. So basically I did that for work 0, change up and down. So change these up and down by 2. And I lost it. Yeah, change inches up, change distance up, change distance down, change to inches, and work 0. And work 0 is work position, go to XY0. So of course you do that after you've already set your XY0 up, after you've homed your machine and set your work XY0 up. So that's what that does. And again, all those bottom ones I used the TinyTask to do. There again, I just hit the F8, came over, and remind you, it's gonna do exactly what you tell it to do. So there, I messed up and I clicked it, and when I stop it and come back and rerun it, it's gonna pick everything I did. So you just got to be mindful of that. So you want to take your time and get that macro recorded right, and then save it to a location, and then you can call it. One thing that Luna does require, though, if you've noticed in here, and if you want to use this setup, you can. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment all these out, just because they will not run if you don't have them set up. I don't know, if it won't give you an error, it just won't run. So to remove the comments, you just take these double lines out, or these dashes out. But one unique thing that it does require is it does require double backslashes. So that's the only requirement. And I'll give you a screenshot of my actual pendant so you'll see what all these numbers and show you what they all go to. A little mapping for that. But that's basically it. And for this last part, we'll look at how we can minimize a Luna CNC and have it start when your machine reboots. So to minimize Luna CNC, we have these first 3 lines of code, or these first 2 lines of code that tell it to minimize it to the tray and then to actually minimize it. It's really all you need there. When you hit play, if you notice, it minimizes it and it doesn't even show up on your tree. The only place you will be able to find it at that point is if you open Task Manager and go to Processes, and you should have Luna Macros exe there. So to set this up, you have to know where your Luna Macros is, and then you also have to know where your text file is. I guess maybe we should talk about where you set up your text file and how that is. In Luna Macros, I have let me go back to there. In Luna Macros is the executable, and what I've done is I've right-clicked and created a shortcut. So that's just right-click, create a shortcut, and it creates this shortcut here. And also in the same location, I have my CNC pendant.lua file. And how you get this to work is if you come into your shortcut and go to Properties, you'll see that's your shortcut right there. So I've taken this shortcut and I've copied it out to this location. And I've gone into the properties of that. And so if you remember, this was the original shortcut. It was just this first part of it to here. What I've added is double quotes with the location of the Luna file itself, so the CNC_pendant Luna file. I've done a space and then put that right there at the end. So what that does is whenever I click the shortcut, it starts Luna and then calls the recipe file, I guess, and opens it up. And because the recipe file has the minimize stuff, it throws it in the minimize folder. This machine is still running Windows 7, so how you get that to auto start is you just come into here, all programs, and go to startup. And then in this startup folder, you add the shortcut. So whenever my machine reboots, it automatically starts Luna, minimizes it, and gets it out of the way. If you didn't want it minimized, you could just run it in the background, but I want it minimized. I don't want to see it. So it's always up and running whenever I come to my machine and I click on CNCjs. It is running and ready for me to go. That's really it. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'll help where I can. Thanks.